Hello and welcome to Tracy Momi Reads. I am back again with another book review. Today, I am going to be talking about the book Dear Wife by Kimberly Belle. Dear Wife. And this was actually the second book that I read by this author. The first one was The Paris Widow, which I think I talked about on the channel. Yeah, I did. I reviewed that on the channel, so you can go and check the archives. And in a similar vein, this is somewhat of a domestic suspense type book. That's a genre that it's in. And I will tell you, this one I read a while ago, but I talk about how much stuff I have in the pipeline for the channel. But I enjoyed it. I mean, enough so that I wanted to talk about it on the channel. So let's get into it. So basically, when this book starts, there are two women, and we know this because of the alternating chapters. So one of the women, it is very clear that she is on the run, okay? And her name is Beth, okay? Beth is on the run, and I mean, it becomes apparent pretty quick that she's either running from like a husband, a boyfriend, a lover, or something like that, right? And she's going through great pains to not make it apparent, where somebody could track her movements, buying cars in cash, getting fake IDs, stopping in random spots here, but then jumping over there, so there's not a straight trail leading to her. It appears that she's trying to cover her tracks carefully, right? Then we get into a chapter where a woman named Sabine has gone missing. And her husband, he's looking for her. And it seems that maybe something is awry, with their relationship. So immediately, I started making the connection. I'm like, well, Beth, probably not her real name, is probably Sabine. And she's on the run from this man because he seems a little shady. No, it's actually two different women. So I feel like, we talked about spoilers last week. I don't feel like that's a spoiler in so much is that it's a heads up, so that if you go into reading this book, you're not really focused on the wrong thing. Because I don't think that it's and maybe it is, these suspense writers, I think maybe it's like an early red herring to try to get you off track, but it becomes apparent really soon that that's not the case, that it's not the same woman. So anyway, we go through the story, and it's alternating chapters where we're following Beth's movement and what she's doing, and then the search for Sabine. And once you do realize that, okay, this is two different women, because two different husbands come into play and they have two different names, right? But there's like this weird, what do you call it? 6 degrees of separation of how they're all connected. And I felt that was done very cleverly. Okay. I don't know that I like the whole jumping out the gate trying to make us think this is the same woman, but the way that as things start to unfold, we meet Beth's husband when because he's a police officer and he's trying to help Sabine's husband find her, there's an investigation. So then you just start to put all the pieces together, did these women know each other too? Or how does Jeffrey, or why is she running? And the thing that I thought was also clever is that we're given all of these breadcrumbs as the reader as to the movements of Beth and where she's going and, what she's doing and how she's hiding out. And she's trying to keep her identity a secret, from everyone. And when you start getting closer to the end, you start to realize that it was very intentional on her part. And that maybe, I'm not saying this is true or not, but maybe she actually wasn't trying to hide her movements. I mean, because if you're married to a police officer, I mean, allegedly they're smarter than the average bear, especially if they're an investigator, right? So maybe, just maybe, she was like dropping breadcrumbs and clues for him to find. Okay, and that's all I'm gonna say about that. But through the course of her movements, and just from the things that are gleaned when when they do have some flashbacks to the past, like prior to her leaving, it's very apparent that her husband was abusive, that he was an asshole, and that she should have ran and should have left. And I think that just goes to speak to, you hear a lot of stuff in the media or the news lately, especially as it pertains to like victims of abuse, whether it's physical, psychological, any of that. And people who have never been in those situations, myself included, I think sometimes it's easy for us to say, well, why didn't she just leave? Why didn't she just leave? And that's not always something that's easy to do. I think that there are so many factors that you have to look at. Like, in Dear Wife, for example, with her husband being a police officer, a detective at that, he had quite a lot of pull in where they lived. Like, he was kind of like a golden boy, and I don't know, I can't remember if there was, I know his mom was involved and they may have had money or, something. But when you have power and prestige and influence and money on your side, and it's hard to reach out for help against someone who people have on a pedestal or who people don't want to believe did anything wrong in the first place, then you're painted as the person that's, starting problems, or you're just trying to ruin this person's good name, or you're not grateful, and all these things. And it's like, how do you get help? And especially if you have someone who has such a huge ego like her husband did, like her leaving him like the right way, like, hey, let's get a divorce. This isn't working out. I don't like how you treat me. Like, he wasn't going to let her go. He was not going to let her go. And he had let her know that several times, that pretty much the only way that she was going to get out of that marriage was somebody was going to die. But I felt like the pacing of the story, the amount of suspense, it kept you like, kept me like, swiping, because I got it on my Kindle, swiping to see, okay, what's going to happen next, or what's happening here. And the biggest thing, like I said, I was looking for that thread that tied her and Sabine together. And like, where is Sabine? Like, did she leave her husband too? Like, what is really going on here? And then when that part starts to come to light as to the connection, because there was a connection, it was kind of like, oh, okay. And then you learn, where Sabine was and her fate and all of that. And I just felt like it was very well played, very well played. I think she did a good job in putting all of those pieces together, making it plausible, giving the reader closure as to what was going on and what's happening. I feel like the whole storyline with trying to determine whether or not Beth and Emma were the same woman. That's the only part that I don't know that I really like, because it was getting confusing, because it just seemed to me anyway early on that you had two different husbands. I mean, granted, the police officer, he wasn't looking for his wife. Even though she was missing too, he was helping somebody else look for their spouse. But then, we get some information when he goes home, and we learn that, okay, he's looking for somebody too. But of course, like I said, with his ego, he's not going to tell anybody his wife is missing, because he's determined to find her on his own. After all, he's he's an investigator. He's a police officer. He knows like how to find her, and he goes on the hunt eventually for her. Like I mentioned, she was leaving those breadcrumbs for him to follow. And that was when I feel like the story really picked up, when he started following those breadcrumbs and we started getting to the climax of the story, which that was quite the twist, what ended up happening with that. So yeah, if you like stories that are, first of all, in the domestic suspense realm, if you like stories that are going to keep you guessing, stories with multiple red herrings, that keep you thinking, oh, this person did, oh no, it's this person, and you still aren't right. And then finally, if you like stories where people get what they deserve for the things that they've done, I feel like you will really enjoy Dear Wife by Kimberly Belle. The trigger warnings, obviously, I talked about, there's some domestic abuse in the story that is, it's like told in flashbacks. None of it is like real time, but just the reliving of it and the retelling of it through a character. And there's also some character death. So if any of that turns you off from it, then I would stay away from it. But otherwise, like I said, I found it to be engaging and entertaining. Dear Wife by Kimberly Belle. If you have read Dear Wife, I would love to know your thoughts. Let me know in the comments. And also make sure that you like this video and share it with someone who you feel may enjoy my comment. Thank you so much to everyone who has already subscribed to my channel. But if you have not, go ahead and take the opportunity to do so now. Thanks again. You guys enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I will see you next week. Bye.